SMT Nation, what is going on, my good people? Happy Friday to one and all at the time of this premiere. I know some people catch this on replay, so you're catching it on the DVR. So I do want to do a couple of hashtags before we get started. Let's hashtag 2LiveCrew for those that are able to be here for the live show. So you're in the live chat discussing tonight's topics. It's good to have you all. Hashtag 2LiveCrew. And then for those that are watching this on DVR, hashtag replay crew. Appreciate you guys all the same, whether you're live or on replay. I also want to do a couple of other shout outs. I want to give a special shout out to my moderators, hashtag Mod Squad. Those with the blue names, the blue wrenches. I appreciate you all holding it down for me, keeping things kosher in the live chat, moderating the comment section of my videos, as well as here on the live stream. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for that service. Appreciate your contributions to the channel. Also, another set of shout outs goes to the newest patrons. We have a few additions, and then those that have kind of occurred over the course of the month of July. Big shout out to Bobby B, Sofak, welcome back, Lenny, Wesley, Nathan, and Shuman, Quentin, welcome to the community. Big shout out to you all, as well as the long-standing patrons for supporting the SMT. You all are so amazing. Thanks for supporting. The patron squad knows what's going on. Exclusive content not found anywhere else. Discounts on Los Mobile service. Unique features. Like I said, the exclusives, the exclusive podcast, the exclusive videos, the early access. All of that stuff that goes into the Patreon. Amazing. A great value and a way to support one of your favorite creators on the YouTube platform. So if you would like to take part in that, we welcome you to the community to check it out. There is a link in the description box for that. Let's see. I also have my Twitter handle in the description box, and also my email address in case you want to share some screenshots of what's going on in networking. Maybe you have some questions you wanted to ask the SMT directly. I'm also, on Twitter. I'll gladly interact with you there. The handle is @SneedTech. So there's lots of different ways you can reach out and communicate with me and all that good stuff. Thank you all for that. And of course, big shout out to all of the viewers and subscribers of the SMT. You don't need to be a patron supporter, all right? You don't have to do any type of donations or anything like that. By viewing, subscribing, and commenting, you've gone above and beyond my expectations. So thank you for that. I do appreciate the engagement. It's a labor of love to produce the content. I enjoy it. It's been fun. It's a great ride. And just happy to do it, really. So welcome one and all to the show. Hopefully we got everybody lined up in here. We did the intros for a few minutes. Everybody knows that I usually take the first 4 or 5 minutes to kind of do the introduction to the show. But we can actually go ahead and get started. Let me get my video feed going here. And let's get that started now. There we go. What is up, my good people? The SMT Nation is in the house. We got July 23rd, 2021 at the time of this broadcast. You are probably watching this live in the evening and maybe on replay crew. So we got a lot to discuss in today's show. I haven't done a dedicated podcast in about a week or two, so it's good to be back and doing one of these. We did do a couple of, non-traditional kind of like impromptu live streams because of the earnings reports and stuff like that. So, we did the AT&T earnings report. I talked about that a little bit on Carlos's channel. You guys can check out Carlos S Tech on YouTube. One of my moderators, if you could throw in the link there, that would be great. Thank you. And then myself, Moose, and Tyrone, we talked about the big news from AT&T and Dish. We talked about the Verizon numbers as well. So it's been a pretty eventful week, actually. So to recap quite a bit, and then there's some other stuff, some odds and ends. We'll be talking about, just quickly, I'm going to discuss a new smartphone from Qualcomm called the Insider smartphone. I'm going to tell you guys about it. It's kind of interesting. I'll give you the specs and what we know about the phone, and it might be something to consider if you're upgrading your devices this year or you're looking to add a device to your stable of phones. There's 2 updates out of Starlink. I know a lot of you out there have at least considered or thought about Starlink as a potential home internet option. For those of you that live in certain certain regions of the country where internet providers just aren't there, or you lack competition, or there is no infrastructure, no fiber, no DSL. I mean, satellite's an option, or it is the option. And I think Starlink, these updates coming out of Starlink are good to know type of stories. So we got some explanations and commentary from the man himself, Elon Musk. So all you Musketeers could be excited about that. And then also a little bit about Verizon and Erickson and their deal. They've established a long time running partnership, and it looks like that has been renewed. So that's exciting. We'll talk about the gear that Erickson will be providing for Verizon as they move forward in their networking with 5G and such. And then there's like 3 stories out of AT&T, which are super interesting because these things just happened this week. And man, I'm really starting to like what I'm seeing at AT&T. This is a different company than the old version of AT&T, which is great because the old version sucked, and the newer version is much better. And I think it's time we start wrapping our mind around the concept that AT&T is more competitive, they're more nimble and fleet-footed, and I feel like they're more responsive to the consumer than they've ever been. They're not perfect by a long shot. I don't think any carrier is, but it's a good and welcomed improvement, in my opinion. Okay, all right, let's get things started. First story, number 1. Qualcomm is going to launch their own smartphone. Unusual. Qualcomm is a SoC manufacturer. But what they're going to be calling the Snapdragon Insider is going to be a smartphone that's actually built by ASUS for Qualcomm. Now, as a smartphone chipset manufacturer, and not just smartphones, chipsets for anything electronic, processors, modem, antenna arrays, like all those different things they do. Mostly an Android OEM when it comes to that. And now Apple, right? Or back to Apple. They used to have a partnership with them a long time ago. I mean, they've been pretty busy. They've been in development of a lot of different products. And, they're the biggest name, I think, in SoCs. You think about what Huawei has been in the past. You think about Intel and Qualcomm, right? These are names that come to mind. But what we're going to be seeing with this device, with this Snapdragon Insider phone made by ASUS, it's going to offer a design and demonstration of what a power user phone could and should be. Like, what is the true capability of Qualcomm? Putting all of that into a smartphone, specifically designed to kind of showcase that. And this kind of reminds me of the old Nexus program. Big shout out to Tito, Aloha Android. He knows what I'm talking about. And then for anybody out there who's old enough to remember the Nexus program. All right. And that kind of mission was, we're going to have smartphone manufacturers and OEMs build us devices. And we're going to provide them with a benchmark of Android operating system fundamentals. This is what the software experience should and could be with Android. And then, of course, that becomes like a reference software and a reference device in the form of the Nexus. I remember the first gen Nexus. I don't know if you guys can remember some of the OG Nexus devices made by Samsung and HTC and LG. I had a lot of those phones. I think I may have had all but maybe 2 Nexus devices. I had pretty much most of them. I think I didn't have the original, and I may have missed one of the Samsungs, maybe the Galaxy Nexus, but I had most of them. And then moving forward, I had all the Google phones too, from the first gen Google phone The original Google Pixel. I've had every single one since. But yeah, I mean, this is what that reminds me of. This Snapdragon Insider phone reminds me of that. A reference device that kind of to showcase, what a smartphone could and should be on Android. So, I don't know. This phone is going to be available to a very specific group of people called Snapdragon Insiders. Kind of like a fan community. You can actually get on really easily. It's not an exclusive group like nobody can be in it, just some chosen few. Quite the contrary. You just have to be in the group, and it's easy to get in the group, and then they would offer it, for sale to you. I'm assuming you put in orders and then they fulfill orders, because they're probably not going to make many of these. I'm assuming they're just not going to sell a lot. I mean, what sells in the U.S.? The iPhone. Whatever. It's last gen, this gen. Samsung does pretty well with their Galaxy devices, whether it's the Note series or the S series, the mid-rangers, the budgets. Google's got a little traction. Motorola's got a little traction. But really, it's an Apple and Samsung world. So this is not going to sell like hotcakes. This is not going to be something that's going to revolutionize smartphone sales. It's just not going to happen. Nor do I expect this to even have marketing. I mean, why? I just think it's one of those reference devices that kind of needs to happen or should happen. And we can look at it as a relic in about 5 or 10 years. Hey, you remember when, Snapdragon Insider phone was released for $1,500? Forgot to tell you the price. $1,500 for this device. Who wants to pay $1,500 for a reference device? I mean, people are paying $1,100, $1,200 for an iPhone, like the 12 Pro Max or something like that. People are paying $1,200, $1,300 for these Samsung Galaxy Ultras, But I just don't know who's in the market for a $1,500 phone manufactured by ASUS, known as the Snapdragon Insider. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure it's going to be worth that money and performance because it's probably going to be an extremely high-performing device. It sounds to me like it might be something similar to like the ROG phone. Big shout out to my brother Ciova, who might know what I'm talking about, right? But I just think about what in the world is this device going to offer people that kind of makes it unique, that's going to separate it from other smartphones and other smartphone manufacturers and what they're doing. Are you going to get somebody to sell or get rid of their Galaxy S21? It's probably not going to happen. Is somebody going to get rid of their iPhone for this phone? Probably not. But I think it's pretty interesting. I mean, I'm going to be following this device. I'm not going to get one, I don't think. I'm just not in the market for a $1,500 smartphone. Not from any manufacturer. But it is going to have some high-powered specs. It is going to be running the newest version of Android 11. It'll have 512 gigabytes of storage, 16 gigs of RAM. So this thing's going to pack a wallop. 6.8-inch display. I do believe it's going to be an OLED display, so that's good. We like OLEDs. We are expecting a high-level refresh rate, something like 144 hertz. Qualcomm Snapdragon, I don't know. It's got some cool 3D sonic sensors, some second-generation fingerprint scanner. We'll have the Qualcomm Snapdragon 888. That's the most, cutting-edge technology that Qualcomm has. I'm not sure why they didn't put the Plus, because that's like a variant of the 888 that's a little bit more modern, I guess, coming here at the end of the year. So I'm surprised they didn't use it. Maybe there's something wrong with the Plus, or maybe they just want to use these instead. I don't know. And maybe they switch and change it. Who knows? 4,000 milliamp hour battery. To me, that seems a little low. I would have liked to have seen that higher. Think about how much you're paying for this phone. 5,000 milliamp hour battery would have been solid. 65 watt power in terms of charging. There's going to be lots of cameras on this thing, I'm sure. There'll be like 6, right? 1 on the front and like 4 or 5 on the back or something. I don't know. Anyways, I don't know. We'll see. It's going to have a lot of horsepower. It's going to be really strong. Cellular-wise, it's going to have every single cellular band that's currently available or in future networking. That's pretty cool. Because if it has all things millimeter wave and all things sub 6 gigahertz 5G, count me in. And then even better, if it has all of Dish wireless cellular bands, that's interesting too. Because, you know, that kind of future-proofs it, and maybe that makes it a reference device for maybe, you know, if you're in the case of like Las Vegas, Nevada. Carlos is going to be in the market of getting a Dish SIM for testing. If this phone could utilize all those NR bands, all the 5G bands, whether it's like N29 and I forget what are their other unique NR bands. I forget, they're escaping me now. But those are just some of the things that I would consider, because you're paying $1,500, so you want it to pretty much be future proof for a long time. It's going to be Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.2. It will be sold in the US, China, United Kingdom, and Germany. I didn't see any other countries listed. What say you? What do you guys think? Interested in this phone? The price point's $1,500. Did that price you out? Are you in the market for an Insider phone, a Snapdragon Insider? Go ahead and let me know. Drop me a line in the comment section, and we're there in the live chat, and let me know. All right. Next story, or stories, I should say. These are out of SpaceX and Starlink. Big shout out to all of the Elon Musk supporters, hashtag Musketeers. Let's start with the first story. I was reading this article and I thought to myself, okay, maybe people needed a reminder, and that's why people felt compelled to have to hear this from the man himself, Elon Musk. Starlink, which is SpaceX internet service that they're going to be providing, their CEO and founder, Elon Musk, says Starlink is probably not for you. That's an interesting statement. I know what he means. And I think a lot of you may already kind of catch the drift here. But there are a lot of people that are always in the market, always looking for a new option or a second option, third, fourth option for internet providers. And like some people have 2 or 3 options, which is great. Some people have one choice, which is not a choice. You're stuck with one. And you're looking for options, or maybe the services are so bad and unreliable, you're like, I just need something reliable. That's where Starlink comes into play. Places where they, lack infrastructure, there's no fiber, there's no cable, there's no DSL. Cellular's troublesome, and there's no fixed wireless access. There's all these different things that could be the case, different scenarios. That's where Starlink comes into play. Starlink is not for the person who lives in New York City. Starlink is not for the person who lives in Columbus, Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, Detroit, Michigan, LA, Houston, Miami, Philly, Boston. It's just not. It wasn't designed for you. You have options. Whether or not you like them or not, they are there. So what Elon Musk is doing here, besides maybe turning some people off like, hey, this isn't for you, I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to set some realistic expectations. All right? So he wants to serve people that really need to be served and that won't have a problem with the pricing and won't have a problem with availability. So he's not turning people's business away. He's just saying temper your expectations and who this is for. So Starlink, what they do is they deploy low orbiting satellites for internet transmission, right? To give people internet via satellites. And they offer this home internet service. And it's really designed for people who don't have practical options or infrastructure. And if you don't have those types of services, you don't have that legitimate infrastructure, that's where he comes into play with Starlink. What I personally consider the last mile of connectivity has kind of morphed into fixed wireless access and a combination of satellite services. Not many people or businesses are going to be incentivized to want to install fiber and cable in the middle of some mountain range somewhere. You got somebody living in the Smokies or somebody living in Appalachia, and there's no infrastructure pre-existing, and there's not many people living there, and it's very spaced out and sparsely distributed populations, low numbers. I mean, who's motivated to do that? The return of investment may take decades. I mean, you're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars deploying fiber for 50 residents, that are just so sparsely spaced out. It's unrealistic to expect that to happen. And that's where Starlink comes into play, and fixed wireless access too. So really, what I think Starlink is for a unique, small 3 to 5% of the world's population. Because most people live in well-populated areas. The sheer number of people that live in well-developed and urban cities and suburban areas, I'm talking like 70+% of the U.S. population lives in urban settings and suburban. I think with urban and suburban, you might even be closer to 80%. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the data in a while, but it seems like, I think between 5G and fixed wireless access and fiber, most people are connected. This last 5% or 5 or 6% of people, probably good to get the satellite service. So, yeah, I think it takes care of that little bit of people that need connectivity, because they do, right? They're productive citizens, whether you're working remotely or it's an agricultural area that, is for farming and whatever other services are going on, or there's research somewhere where they need services. I mean, this kind of fits the bill. Now, for satellites, in order to have capacity, there's a lot of different things that have to happen. You need a density of satellites, right? You need to just put a bunch of them up there and get them orbiting. Hundreds, thousands, they always do these launches. But you can get some decent capacity out of satellite. And the latency has room for improvement, and it looks like that is ongoing. I'll talk more about that in story number 2. But, it's a service. I think internet through satellite is a service designed for minimalistic, low population areas where operators don't want or can't be realistically, and it's too costly for the infrastructure, and the return of investment just won't be there. But I think what Starlink is doing with the price, $99 a month, they're promising 50 to 150 megabits per second on the downlink, and they're shooting for about 20 megabits per second on the uplink. Both of those are fair. They're not the fastest. I'm not going to be bragging about 20 megabits uplink, nor am I going to be bragging about 50 megabits downlink. But again, some people without options, that's probably sounds like heavenly to them. So, as long as it's not a failure, as long as it's consistent, reliable, dependable, I mean, a $400 deposit for the equipment takes care of that side of the transaction. That's kind of expensive. From what I understand, the equipment for Starlink to produce and manufacture is over $1,000. So they're eating up some of that cost too in order to operate those services. I think eventually they want to get that hardware, so the dish and the receiver and all that, they're trying to get that cost down to like $250 to $350. If they're able to do that, that really streamlines their operations, brings down the bill of materials on that hardware, and then allows people to get in a little bit cheaper. Because what you can then do is, if it's costing you $250 to produce it, as opposed to $1,000 or more, now you're like, well, we could just give you the hardware. We'll make the money back on service, right? Or, if they feel compelled to do so, it's part of the business model. They could just charge $99 as a deposit for the equipment, and then $99 a month for the service. And I think that's fair. And you guys can tell me what you think. Would you be willing to pay $99 a month for the hardware, or do they have to come in and say it's free? You just got to pay for the service. Honestly, I wouldn't mind paying the deductible. I'll just get the money back when I'm done with the equipment, right? And they do warranty the equipment, and if it fails, you can return it and all of that. So as of right now, it's kind of tough. The $400 deposit is no easy pill to swallow for a lot of people. Not me nor anybody else would prefer to pay it, but, you know, it's kind of just a necessary evil. Yeah, I think there's a lot of possibility for growth, improvement, and I'm really happy that this has become an option for people. It looks like they're going to be working on some things to improve the service, some satellite-to-satellite laser links. They're going to be doing that to kind of improve latencies and get more dependable, reliable service, improve like satellite handoffs and stuff like that. I want to kind of pivot over there and kind of talk about those things too, as like part 2 of this Starlink piece of the podcast. One of the things that a lot of people have noted is that Starlink is not as good in terms of performance as, say, for example, fiber. It's understandable. You're trying to broadcast internet from tens of thousands of feet up, you know? But like I said, it has its place, and it's going to be good for a lot of people. So one of the trouble areas currently when we're looking at the speed test and we're looking at the performance of Starlink has been the latency, and it looks like those latencies are going to be improving. It's on its way. Specifically, Elon Musk went on to describe that maybe, just maybe, through the end of this year, we may be seeing substantial latency improvements to the point where competitive online gaming will be now sustainable and possible on their network. So CEO and founder Elon Musk of SpaceX and Starlink says that they will get to sub 20 milliseconds in terms of latency very soon. There's going to be very specific latency enhancements coming to the internet service. Estimates are that ping times will be dropping in the coming months. So it's almost August, and they said later this year. It would be pretty cool if we got something in October, November, December, where the latencies for Starlink can improve. Currently, people are sharing, speed tests and other things, saying that their latency and their ping times are somewhere between like in the mid to upper 20s. That's really nice. But all the way up into like the mid to upper 80s in terms of milliseconds and ping. This creates a pretty tough situation for certain tasks that require lower latency. For those of you that don't know what latency is, it's basically a network delay, and you want that value low. It improves your quality of connection and the performance of your connection. For example, fiber typically has latencies between 1 millisecond to like 3, 4, or 5 milliseconds. Very common. Some cable connections are also very similar in those latencies. Sometimes they get up to like 7, 8, 9, 10 milliseconds, stuff like that. LTE's kind of like, on average, maybe 30 milliseconds. Certain carriers better than others. We're starting to see some 5G stuff getting some pretty low latencies into the single digits. That's pretty cool. Millimeter wave connections have ultra low latencies. That'll be kind of changing with standalone networking and stuff like that. But the goal, I think, is for Starlink to get sub 20 milliseconds as a benchmark and kind of like an expectation. So for competitive gaming, you need lower latency. So if you live in a remote area, just because you have a satellite internet provider doesn't mean you can't have low enough latency to compete. So if you have like gaming titles that are like first-person shooters, you know what I'm talking about. A 10 or 20 millisecond difference could be make or break for somebody to win. So getting it as low as possible kind of creates a selling point. If Elon Musk can get it sub 20 milliseconds, a lot more people are willing to purchase the service, I think, for that purpose. What they're going to do is they're going to be adding more ground stations, increase the fiber connections, thus enabling better beaming performance to orbiting satellites. So that's essentially what they're going to be doing on that side, but they're also going to be leveraging lasers for the satellite-to-satellite data connections and the data transmissions. There's another thing that they're going to be doing. There's going to be some packet routing enhancements also across the entire network, and this should result in 50% reduced latencies. Pretty much each one of those little adjustments should cut latency in half. That's pretty promising. I like what I'm hearing and seeing out of these modifications. So potentially 10 milliseconds is quite possible. They're saying theoretically that can happen. Will we see 10 milliseconds? I don't know. But if we're in the mid to upper 20s right now is the best, we would like to see that improve. The laser technology actually is pretty intriguing. I think it's pretty sweet. The laser tech could also reduce the need for additional ground stations in that application. This would mean that some internet connections could also completely go terminal and actually never be like regular internet. That's kind of interesting. So it would basically be satellite to terminal. So unorthodox, but hey, I mean, that's kind of cool, not needing the ground stations. Another goal is to, kick up the downlink speed, obviously. They want to shoot for a 300 megabit per second downlink speed. This is going to require batches and batches of more satellites. They pretty much need to deploy like hundreds of these every month. We've seen, some pretty major launches recently, and they date back all the way to last year. So again, cost of service $99 a month. You got to pay $400 for a deposit on the hardware, and that gets you into the Starlink service that appears to be trending up, and we're very excited about it. All right, we're basically halfway through the show. So I dedicated about half of the show to what's going on with AT&T and Dish. But before I transition over to AT&T and Dish, I do want to discuss quickly what's going on with Verizon and Erickson. They have inked another long-term deal. This is a tremendously massive 5G deal, specifically. So we're talking about a time frame of 5 years. That's essentially how long it's going to take for like phase 1 or phase 2. I don't know how you want to look at it. This big 5G renaissance that's about to happen for Verizon with C-band is essentially what I'm kind of like shooting at here. The value is $8.3 billion. What's being dubbed as Ericsson's largest contract ever. That's pretty big. So I would assume that everybody at Ericsson's pretty thrilled with this deal. It's a big contract. It includes a full vendor portfolio. We're talking about hardware that goes on tower sites. We're talking about software support and development, whether it's the hardware or the software, and everything that's going to be happening on the RAN equipment and gear side of things, the software for low frequency, mid-band frequency, and millimeter wave technologies. This is radio systems. This is massive MIMO tech. This is the DSS piece, as well as cloud operations. So it's the whole shebang. The announcement comes during Ericsson's Q2 earnings call. That's when we found out about it. So it likely was kept under wraps until Verizon said, hey, you could disclose it at your earnings call or whatever. And, now I think for Verizon, you're looking at Ericsson and Samsung as long-term commitments for the next several years. But there's no Nokia, so they're pretty much gone. So Nokia's out. Ericsson completely in. Samsung completely in. Those will be the major two parts of the Verizon ultra-wideband networking. So we're talking about C-band, the 3.7 gigahertz. That'll be big for the next few years. And then also the millimeter wave tech will continue to be a big part of what Verizon does for their ultra-wideband services. All this equipment, this vendor software, will be the NSA variant of 5G non-standalone and also the standalone 5G networking of the future. So just a quick little thing there. Verizon focusing on their 5G networking with Ericsson and Samsung as partners. No Nokia moving forward. All right, now we can go ahead and transition to AT&T. Piece number 1, AT&T's 5G. I got that out of sequence here. Okay, so yes, here it is. I found an article. And some of these like network analyst media people, and they tickle me. One of those that tickles me is Craig Moffett. All right, I'm not picking on him specifically. I'm just saying that sometimes, you read stuff and you see stuff on these news articles and you're just like, obviously somebody asked them a question, these writers and stuff like that, these journalists. that cover the industry, but I just don't understand. This particular instance from Moffett-Nathanson, this group, they see the AT&T deal with Dish as being bad, being negative. So here we go. What's Craig Moffett's view or take that's making it a bad call, right? He takes issue with the duration of the Dish deal. Basically, this is a network as a service agreement for the next 10 years with a 2-year integration piece at the end. So that's essentially a 12-year contract between AT&T and Dish. Dish, in this deal, according to Craig Moffett, makes Dish a hybrid MNO/MVNO indefinitely, and it ensures that they will be a competitor. Okay, how is it bad if Dish is a competitor? Basically, what I think he's saying is that before, under the T-Mobile terms of the agreement with the T-Mobile and Sprint merger that was negotiated by the antitrust of the DOJ, that deal must have sucked. This is what made Charlie Ergen of Dish seek out a better deal. He most definitely had discussions with Verizon. He probably leveraged AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile all against each other, going back and forth, looking for the best deal possible. And he got that. That's what AT&T provided. What exactly incorporates a good deal for Charlie Ergen? Number one is the duration. The time. He got more years than the T-Mobile deal, which was 7 years. He's got 10 plus 2 is 12. He got an additional half a decade. So that's huge in building out a 5G network nationally. That buys him more time. Also, he got a better price, without a doubt. He was not going to do this without a better price, and he was not going to do this without help in subsidizing phone upgrades for people on old CDMA tech, which has been a huge problem with the Boost customer situation with T-Mobile. So, under this new agreement, he says Dish is going to succeed and be a competitor. Under the old agreement, he says Dish was bound to fail. Looks like Dish did the right thing. So AT&T now replaces T-Mobile as the MNO, the mobile network operator for Dish, as they build out their native greenfield 5G network, standalone 5G. My issue is this. It may only enable Dish to build networking in densely populated areas, and it may kind of have them putting the extended coverage, the rural America part, right? He may be putting that on the back burner because it's a lot more time consuming to go into these extended parts of the U.S. where there's very little population. Companies are less motivated or extrinsically motivated to build out. You're going to sit there and install a tower site in the middle of nowhere for 13 people that are going to access that site on the daily. Meanwhile, there are connections in the CLE, for example, where you have hundreds, if not thousands, of people connecting to a site any given day. So I kind of see that as an issue. They're going to be falling back on LTE for most of that, for most of those 10 to 12 years. But it's kind of nice because FirstNet offers a great, network advantage. AT&T's network is getting larger. It's getting more capacitive. It's very uniform. Most definitely a better deal for all in this. But now we might see a Dish that is building out a little bit easier. Maybe they're a little bit lazier. I think they're obviously business-wise a little bit smarter here, at least for now. I mean, they still do have to build out their own network. Otherwise, they're going to continue to roam and have to pay, and then could have a whole slew of implications with the FCC. But the FCC does mandate that Dish does build out a network that does cover 70% of the United States population within the first couple of years of the agreement. And then I think by 2025, they're supposed to have 75% of the U.S. covered in their native 5G. So they should be able to get there within the time frame based on population numbers. Right? I don't know what the exact number is, but I'm assuming 70% of the U.S. lives in the top 50 PEAs, at least. Might be higher. Might be like 80%. AT&T obviously gets revenue out of this. They literally take money out of T-Mobile's piggy bank. T-Mobile, this is estimated to be between 0.5 and $2.5 billion annual revenue. It just kind of depends on the usage and how fast, Dish can build out their own native network. Because as long as they don't have a native network, people are going to be on AT&T and they're going to be paying AT&T for Dish service. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. He said this is a bad deal. I don't see it as a bad deal because I want Dish to succeed. So some people are saying AT&T's stupid. Why are you enabling another competitor? And then AT&T is saying, we don't care. We want to be a part of the success. As long as we're winning, we don't mind if another company is winning. That's a very important element of the story. T-Mobile, I think, always saw Dish as a thorn in their behind. AT&T is like, no, we view them as a partner. Just a question for you guys out there. Who's the uncarrier? You guys remember the uncarrier T-Mobile? Who embraced competition? Huh. I don't think they're embracing the competition anymore. They'll compete for customers. But as part of the merger agreement, they were tasked and agreed to facilitate the fourth carrier, and that was the whole issue with this deal. That's why Dish went elsewhere. To kind of expand on the story, AT&T CEO John Stankey further defended the deal with Dish at the Q2 2021 earnings call. I'm getting the impression that AT&T was perfectly fine with every element of the agreement between AT&T and Dish. AT&T was not going to agree to terms that they couldn't live with. So that's one of the things I often say to people is, whatever you can handle, you will handle, and what you can't handle, you shouldn't, and you can't. So AT&T accepted the terms that they could live with and they could handle. I'm getting the impression through a couple of bits and pieces of information from the inside at AT&T, as well as just kind of looking from the outside and, listening to some of this commentary from CEO John Stankey, they want to be a big player in wholesale and MVNO moving forward. They want to create these win-win relationships. That's exactly what John Stankey said. He's different than the previous CEOs at AT&T. I'm not saying he's John Legere. I'm just saying he's more willing to play ball here. Before, you got the impression that all the carriers wanted to, distinguish themselves and not integrate anything with wholesale and MVNO. It just seems like they're more willing to do that now because I think those positive relationships allow them to generate more revenue and keep those relationships long term. He was quoted as saying, Dish was going to be successful no matter what. We want to ride along. They want to be a part of that success because they can have success with them. There's no better relationship in business when both parts of the transaction win. I was having this discussion with my friends who are discussing possible trades in fantasy football. You don't have to have a winner and a loser in a trade. You should have two winners. The reason I bring up fantasy football is, let's say that an owner of a fantasy football team has 4 or 5 running backs that are serviceable. Number 1s, number 2s, all that, it's great. But they need a wide receiver. And then another team has a plethora of wide receivers but needs a running back. The trade that could potentially happen between those two owners is a match made in heaven. One has extra running backs, the other has extra wide receivers. They can swap a running back for a wide receiver and they can both win, fulfilling the needs of each company. That's a good business transaction. That is a good partnership. It's a win-win situation. You don't need a winner and a loser in a business transaction. The best business transaction is one where both win. AT&T's network can support the traffic, according to John Stankey, along with the Dish spectrum sharing. You think about like the AWS 2.1 gigahertz, the band 66, band 4. I have to look at those spectrum assets and see what the licenses are for. but they can actually start being deployed immediately. So we may be saying markets that have upgraded sites recently that can broadcast Dish's spectrum of AWS. Meanwhile, T-Mobile takes the hit here. Not only do they not have that same spectrum sharing opportunity, but they don't get the revenue, which is valued between $500 million and $2.5 billion on the annual. And of course, T-Mobile sorely needs revenue. They're building out an expensive 5G network. They dropped the ball here. This should not have happened. Maybe there was nothing they could have did. Maybe that there are things they could have done. You know, I don't know. I just know that the deals that Charlie was wheeling and dealing, he probably went to AT&T, he went to Verizon, he went to T-Mobile, he said, match this, match this, match this, will you, won't you? This is what it is. And he took the best deal. In terms of the Dish network, traffic will start shifting to the AT&T network later on this year. So you're not going to rush out to get an AT&T version of the SIM. But they'll get you SIM cards, and they'll get you, they're going to help with the phone subsidies and CDMA allocation, of new phones. That'll be happening ongoing over the course of the next several months. All right. Last story of the day. We'll top this one off. We're already like 47 minutes into the podcast. We'll wrap it up with this one, and then we'll let the beat ride out. All right, last one. T-Mobile back at it again with another corny and amazingly stupid reach of a 5G analogy, man. Wow, unbelievable. We have seen 5G explanations by dinosaurs. We have seen ice sculptures. We have seen boats. We have seen cars, planes, cake. Now ice cream. You got the ice cream analogy. Back to the roots. Desserts. I think their initial one was the layer cake. So, you got like low band at the bottom and then mid band in the middle and then millimeter wave at the top, the little chunk on the layer cake. Now we're going to do ice cream. But for a different reason. Okay, so they're targeting this campaign in Chicago. I forget the name of the segment of the city they're doing this in. But they've got these ice cream examples of 5G in the industry, right? So for T-Mobile, you have ice cream called 4 scoops of Berry Fast 5G. Haha, Berry Fast, get it? Yeah. 2 scoops of basic blue ice cream, that's AT&T, and then 1 scoop of last place licorice, that's Verizon. And of course, licorice is the worst. Nobody wants that. That's terrible. All right. So they strategically did that, whatever the targeting is. It's all in celebration for their awards that they just won in 5G from OpenSignal and Ookla Reports for having like the most available 5G amongst other 5G awards. So I don't know. What do you guys think of the ice cream example? What do you think of the analogy? Does it do anything for you? Does it make you hungry? Do you like the analogy? Do you like the campaign? Like the marketing approach that T-Mobile does with their analogies and dinosaurs and other things? I don't know what's next. I have no clue. Like what other corny analogy are they going to try to do to get it to stick with people? It doesn't seem like anything's really caught on. Can anybody say that layer cake has been a win? They did 5G ginger beer, the 5 gin or 5G gin. Whatever. I just don't know what's next because they're just going to keep on doing this. They keep, throwing stuff up against the wall, trying to get something to stick. Maybe they'll do underwear next. Maybe they could do like 5G granny panties or 5G thongs or something. We'll see. But, give me your prediction. What's the next 5G analogy going to be from T-Mobile? Maybe you got a better idea. Maybe you think they should desert this and do something completely different. Maybe you're kind of seeing it as a joke, or it's goofy or silly or funny. Maybe you see it as stupid and corny, like myself. I don't know. I'm just whatever. So go ahead, and I hope you guys were able to comment in the live chat or comment in the video section on DVR of anything from tonight's topics. If you got any, commentary, or if you have statements, questions, we do appreciate the engagement here on the channel. You're more than welcome to, comment on anything you like. That's pretty much it for tonight's show. I think I covered pretty much everything I wanted to. So thank you all so very much for tuning in, whether you're watching this on the live or watching it on DVR. Before you go, do me a solid. If it is your first time here, first time watching, being on the channel, catching a live stream or whatever, go ahead and subscribe to Sneed Mobile Tech here on YouTube. Subscribe and then activate the bell notification icon so you know whenever we go live and we upload new content. Also, check out the Patreon page link in the description box. You can get exclusive access to content, videos, live streams, podcasts that don't make their way anywhere else in the internets and interwebs, only on Patreon. So check that out. And that's pretty much it. Let's hashtag 2LiveCrew for everybody here in the live. Let's hashtag replay crew for all of you watching this on DVR. Hashtag Ravioli Gang for everybody that is eating dinner or snacking while they're watching or listening. And then hashtag Mod Squad to all my amazing moderators in the live chat. Thank you so much for holding it down for the SMT. You guys are amazing. Appreciate you. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching and listening to the SMT podcast, the Wireless Report podcast. We hope to see you on the next show. And you guys have a great weekend. Take it easy. Peace. You're still here hanging out, I know why you stayed after for this long. You stayed for this. Yeah.